Are we going to bring in Anne Marie live here?
Yeah,
And
let's bring her in and
yeah,
get
we need to
somebody else's
calm down,
perspective
Dennis.
here.
Dennis, wipe
I
the
think,
sweat
and just
off
to
your
sum
brow
up what
there.
we were saying, okay, we'll sum it up after, but we'll bring in Anne Marie right now. Anne
Hello,
Marie
this is
Baiynd.
Anne Marie.
Anne
Anne,
Marie, are you ready for a big show here today? Are you ready to trade these markets? What's going on?
It is absolutely in free fall. It's
Free fall.
crazy.
There's no bids. What are you doing? Are you out there? Are you out there selling? Or are you out there buying with two hands?
Well, I am definitely not buying the two hands,
Okay.
but
Are you buying some
we,
stocks?
um, I am starting to look at some things that I think will be good on a longer time frame. Here's what I perceive that's actually going on in the big picture. So I don't think that there are too many of us that aren't at least minimally surprised at where we're sitting. And we are sitting near those October lows. But those October lows actually are almost, what is that, 160, 130 points below this area. So there's really, and I'm talking about ES points, of course. And so as we're sitting here, there's always the mechanic of, okay, if I buy, who's going to be in my way just above me because they firmly believe that this market is moving from secular bullish to secular bearish, right? That's the sort of the big picture. We've got this big 7-year run to the upside. This is a normal market cycle. We're going to bounce into lower highs and then drift all through the space. That's the one thing for that. And so for me, this really becomes a real stock pickers market with the search for true value at the measure. Now, I'm in the middle of moving kids to college and school and all of that stuff. So frankly, I'm quite a bit hands off, and I've never been so hands off as to see the market drop and not be incredibly active. But I think it's actually been a godsend because as it drifts, I can see a little bit more of those trapped buyers bailing, those value buyers stepping in a little bit too early because, I'm going to tell you, I had a good sense that we would drift lower, but I didn't think we'd be 65 ES points off of where we closed on Friday. So this is definitely a space to pay attention, and it's a space to be extremely selective about what it is that you're buying because we could be sitting in a fairly big shift. Now, I drew a picture a long time ago I drew it at the beginning of the year, and I said, here are the basic ranges that you're going to see in the market. And I have as that baseline space around, for the SPX, around 1790 in terms of the bottom of that overall range. And so, indeed, we could just come back a little bit and then, have a beautiful bounce. But it's rarely like that. It's a little jagged. You know what people get? They get so frantic in these spaces. I just want to go, hey, listen, take a deep breath and a deeper look at what's going on because there's a lot of frantic action in here. People desperate to buy, desperate to sell, and really what you have to do if you're an intraday trader is step down into those 30-minute markers, look at where your support and resistance lie. Remember, if your support gets broken, it means your buyers aren't able to hold the levy. And so you don't keep buying as it drifts lower. You watch for that cycle structure. And the biggest thing I've been saying to anybody who's been calling me, which has been a few, it's just calm down and don't rush out and do anything you're going to feel sorry for later. Whether it's upside or downside, we all want to pick a bottom, just not sure it's right here.
What about a stock like Apple here? And you were talking about being stock selective and looking for value. Apple has lost about 15% in a week here. We're trading now at $99, under 100. Stock has $200 billion in cash. Stock has a 2% dividend here right now. Stock is a cash cow. Can't see this stock going down like the 70s or 80s. I think you've got some protection. I do believe that I don't own any Apple, full disclosure, but I think I might after today. What are your thoughts on a stock like Apple?
I'm in complete accord with you there. And remember, when we start drifting this low, and we've got a lot of people that are bullish, we got to think about margin calls.
Yes.
Or spaces that are people getting close to the margin call where they've got to sell their winners to cover for their losers. And so in these big spaces, we've thrown out the baby with the bathwater because we have to. If we're the buyer or the trader that's in positions that goes, hey, listen, either I got to close this to cover or I'm going to get called on margin, that's a very, very big thing to think about. And so some of these stocks that needed the pullback, remember we were talking about Apple being a little bit broken, looking like it had this weakness event, but it is getting down into spaces now that look very attractive. This one is definitely on my radar in terms of where it's sitting right now. But the problem is it's dropped through a congestion space of 104 that I expected it to hold. And now I'm looking at 97 to 98. If it dips down there, I've got a trigger that I've got with me remotely that I'm going to be able to look in there and make a decision about that. But that really does look like it's getting to be in a very pretty buy zone.
What about Gilead Sciences? Dennis was talking about the biotechs who peaked, way ahead, quite a bit ahead of the market here. Here's a stock. I know you've been following this one for a long time. Is this one, you got caught, you're still holding some, looking to add, trying to buy some calls? What's your outlook on Gilead?
I love Gilead. I think they're really strong. And I think that Gilead is really very much close to the same sort of formation as Apple in terms of solid value. And, of course, we are talking intermediate holds in this space because we are going to see a bottoming trough. It's like, when you hit a tennis ball and it starts losing momentum, the dips on those bounces get a little bit smaller. We are going to have to bounce and consolidate a little bit down here. And I think somewhere around 95 to 98 is going to be a good place to continue another set of holds here. For me, Gilead was really great until I saw it lose 108. And then after that, 108 should have been a level it really should have held. And right around, let's see, what day was that? I think it was just before the earnings, like at the end of July, it pierced that level, and then it started looking really weak at 110. And so I put the stop there at 108. So for the first time in forever, I don't have any Gilead, but I'm certainly very leery about buying it right this minute. I would like to watch it drift and stabilize. I'm okay with not catching a bottom if it leads me to a space where I can sleep at night and realize that I've got cushion from other buyers stepping in there and saying, you know what, I'm willing to put my money down here. And that's really what we want to see. A lot of us want to pick these bottoms, and I love catching the reversal event. But it opens you up to a great deal of risk, and unless your pockets are very deep and you have a good threshold on, all right, I'm going to allow these paper losses to drift because I know I've got my price to value wherever it's supposed to be, or whatever it is that you're looking at fundamentally from a value perspective to help you with this formation and this position. Other than that, unless you are very good fundamentally, it is just much better to let this stuff stabilize through its bounces. And if you pick it up at the next lower high, you know what? You got to win.
Anne-Marie Baiynd, author and financial analyst, joining us here on a really historic day in the markets. S&P trading down 68 points. Anne-Marie, just going to this Gilead chart here, just looking at it from what the market has done since the 4 o'clock open. Obviously, you had the SPOOs down quite a bit at that time, and it took the initial haircut at on that first print. It went down $5. But here, and you considering what's taken place since 4 a.m., I know Dennis, we've been going back and forth on this. I mean, hasn't this one held up kind of relatively well?
I think so.
Yeah,
I think so, Joel. I think you're very right about that. And that's also what I'm looking for. I'm looking for the ones that are showing the relative strength in the massive sell-off. And again, these are people that have had winners for a long, if you've held Gilead through most of the year, if you started early in the year and held Gilead, you're in great shape still. You're in fairly good shape. So these guys, I think here, they're very, very solid. I love Gilead, always talking about it, and it is definitely holding here. But if you want to see why it is being a little hesitant, look back to May, and then, not May, April. The April-May area, you're going to see, what is this? April area. You're going to see it hit the level, bounce off the level, run into about 102, and then come all the way back down, right? And so that is a very natural trading structure, a very natural market structure when people are trying to play a positive line in very negative momentum. Because why that's happening is because of the trapped buyer that buys in the 102 to 104 area, watches it collapse down into 98, 97. Indeed, this thing went pre-market down to looks like about 93 or something. And they get extremely frantic. And so they sell up there, and it forces the price even lower. And so we've got to shake those hands out. The people who bought because they thought it was coming into a breakout, or they bought because they thought it was sitting at support, all of a sudden it drifts lower. The first bounce action, they're going to try and get out because they just cannot handle that psychological drift that occurs in us when we see a trade go bad. And so this is going to be that same cycle that we're going to watch for. It's the psychology of buying the bottoms and people trying to value buy. Well, should I go here? Should I go here? Should I go here? I work with a trader that's long term, and anytime the market drops 200 or 300 points, he goes, wait, shouldn't we buy here? And it's not because it drops that you look for that value, and people still want to do that. You pick it up when it looks like nobody's left to sell. And right now, we had these folks trying to pick this bottom up. This gap, I think, is going to terrify a bunch of people. I mean, it really is. First good bounce, you're going to watch the selling.
Yeah, that's the one thing is you're going to have a technical bounce, but you have a lot of overhead supply. We talk about that a lot on the show here. We were defining it that last week, and now you have overhead supply in everything, like even in a Netflix, for instance.
Absolutely.
Like, let's look at the stock of Netflix, and we go back 2 weeks ago, this stock was making all-time highs, up at 121. It's been an incredible run for Netflix. You go out to the weeklies, the stock was $40 a year ago. Now we're at 103. Well, now we're at 92. So we're losing another 11 points here this morning. Money is flying out of this stock, catching everybody that thought the stock was going to go up here forever. At a certain point in time, we will get that technical bounce here, though. It's just a matter of what happens after that, maybe more selling. But what are your thoughts? Just give us your quick rundown on a higher multiple name, higher beta name like Netflix.
Well, Netflix has been such a darling for so long. I thought Netflix would really sort of top out at about 114. I thought to myself, yeah, you know what, this thing, and indeed, it pulled back. But again, we're looking at the psychology of the buyers frantic to capture that alpha. And so they see it come back and they go, oh, I got to buy it. And they shove it up into exhaustion. We could watch momentum indicators. It's a clear momentum tells this story all over the place. Our highest rise was on very low momentum. And so when it drifts, it's got these plateau levels right now. It's sitting at a plateau. It's spent about, looks like maybe a month and a week, maybe 5 weeks like that, sitting around this 92 area. So again, if it's going to hold, and I'm not really sure we can look at valuation levels here and say, oh, this was a good buy or whatever, because I'm not really sure that we can. However, in terms of what people believe they should be holding, that's how we look at the stock. And it's sitting in a region right now this morning that's going to be very likely to give us some kind of bounce event. But again, if you look back to May and June, we had those same bounces come right in at about 92.45. It bounced up into resistance, came back down, and held the level again. So if you say, hey, listen, I'm buying here because all the buyers held there, it eventually held there, I didn't have any breakdown after that, and then we move up, that's a really good space to look at this chart in terms of risk, because you know if you pick it up here and it loses 90, all of those buyers are not there anymore. You know they're shifted down into a lower value space that's about 87. And then if they're not there, they're in a space that's 82. So instead of the bottom picking space where you go, I'm buying it on the first test, wait, just like it did in June, came back, retested the area, stabilized over the region, and then the trade long was an easy one. And you know what this all boils down to? Patience. But we lose patience because there's a level of anxiety that spikes in us viscerally. When we start watching the markets go like this, we go, well, I got to do something. And a lot of times it should be just watch.
SOH.
Watch that data.
All right. Words of caution coming from Anne-Marie Baiynd. She's an author and financial analyst, giving us a technical. And I think you talk a lot about psychology, and I think that's very important in the markets, especially when you have the trading action you have today. Anne-Marie, great input. Good luck with moving those kids to school. Don't carry too many heavy things, and we'll talk to you in a couple weeks.
All right. Take care. Good luck.
Thanks, Anne Marie.